All right, well, we are super excited to be on with Derrick Max on another iteration of our podcast here with Americans for Prosperity Virginia. My name is Tim Parrish, and I have the privilege and pleasure of serving as the state director for Americans for Prosperity Virginia. Derrick, who is a great strategic partner of ours, is on, and Derrick is the president and CEO of the Thomas Jefferson Institute, which is our state policy network affiliate here in Virginia. Welcome on, Derrick.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
So you've been a partner with ours over the past several weeks during the 2026 legislative session, and we've worked together on a lot of things. You know, we bring that grassroots muscle of people out of the field into Richmond to engage legislators, and you and your team bring that sort of intellectual background to the policy. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you guys sort of develop policy?
Yeah, we view ourselves more as the analysts, the policy reviewers, so to speak, and then we hope you guys will take that to the legislatures and to the grassroots so that they can talk to the legislatures. Our main issues right now are energy, education, right to work, worker freedom, and it's been a tough session. I mean, we've had 2,000 bills go through in 30-day session. A lot more is going through than has gone through in the past. It's been a rough session. When one party has control, it's hard to get them to read anything. They're not even doing fiscal impact statements. They're not taking their time to review the legislation they're passing. It's been a tough time. It's been tough for us. I'm sure it's been tough for you, Tim.
Yeah, so let's break that down for a little bit. So we had an election in November.
Right.
Republicans lose 13 seats in the House of Delegates. We didn't have a Senate race. That'll come up in 2027. We lost all three statewide seats, right? So our attorney general, our lieutenant governor, and our governor. So the landscape has not been as friendly to free market, liberty-minded organizations on the center right like ours. But you mentioned energy. And I want to just jump through some of the specific legislative things that we've worked on. And I know we did energy projects together. So can you kind of unpack and detail a little bit about what you've seen in the landscape on the energy space? And the last thing I'll just say is, Virginia, data centers, we house the most data centers of anywhere like in the world combined. Right. And so then we talk about AI and energy production, all these types of things. What's the landscape look like for you on that space?
Well, it's a hard landscape in Virginia in that we have growing demand, and because of the Virginia Clean Economy Act, we have reducing supply. Which is, from an economic perspective, a disaster. Normally, when demand goes up, supply will respond by creating more facilities to provide energy. Virginia, you can't do that. We've closed our coal plants. We're limiting our gas plants. We're trying to rely on nuclear, but new plants will take 10 to 15 years to get approved. So we're kind of in this holding pattern. And when I say it's a crisis, Tim, about 3 times over the last 2 months, we've come within 5% of our grid, having to do rolling blackouts. They've kicked the data centers off the grid. I'm sure you know that. They've required them to go to diesel backup generators. This is not a good picture.
Sorry to cut you off, but the diesel stuff is antithetical to their green environment because it's burning, all this stuff going up. It's 10 times worse. So it's kind of contradictory to their green initiatives.
The green extreme, yeah. It's even worse than that, Tim, in that we are the largest importing state of energy. And we're importing from where? From coal-producing states. Right. So here we're getting rid of coal, but we're paying other states to burn their coal. The irony a little bit is that I think politicians in Virginia believe that Virginia has a climate and that if we reduce our carbon to zero, our climate will get better. Well, if you were around during the California wildfires or anything, you know that our climate is the world's climate. One day, the air that we're breathing heads off to China, Canada's air blows down here. We're not making a hill of beans difference in global warming or whatever they want to say. And we're literally, the policies we're doing to get rid of, the carbon burning, we're just importing it. We're doing diesel to get people off the grid. We just need people to come together and to work bipartisan to come up with an answer.
Yeah, and these are common sense solutions that you're talking about.
They shouldn't be partisan.
Let's just dig into that a little bit deeper. What is the cost? I mean, we're talking about affordability. We're talking about how to make life easier for people here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. How much is it costing? The VCEA, the Virginia Clean Economy Act, by the way, what does that cost the average Virginian?
Well, its main cost right now is that if we don't meet the mandates that we placed on ourselves under the Virginia Clean Economy Act, we have to go out and buy certificates, carbon certificates from other states, other companies, to reduce our carbon imprint, to offset our carbon use. And those, they're called RECs. These RECs cost millions and millions to the taxpayer. Now, Dominion pays them, but then Dominion is allowed to pass that cost on to Tim and Derrick and ratepayers.
Right.
So instead of being a tax increase, it's a rate increase. And so the Commonwealth can be like, oh, it's we haven't had to raise taxes. Well, the truth is they're raising taxes through Dominion, through Appalachian Power. And it's pretty dramatic. I don't know if you saw your energy bill this month. Mine was up almost 50%.
Wow.
When you have to go out on the market to buy extra power, you pay a premium for it. The auction markets right now under the PJM. PJM is the grid operator for New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia. It's getting very, very expensive because there's not enough supply. Other states are doing the same thing we're doing. They're cutting back on natural gas. Some states are closing coal. Fortunately, West Virginia is keeping theirs,
right,
and we're benefiting from that.
Yeah, we're a recipient of their coal. It's crushing Virginians just to be able to flip their light switches on,
right?
Which is when you think about something so basic that we've enjoyed in this country and in the Commonwealth is just energy and having lights. It really is crushing Virginia families.
It's fundamental.
What does that solution look like to bring down those costs to really achieve true, genuine affordability by way of energy?
Well, you don't need to get rid of. Obviously, I think it would be best to get rid of the Virginia Clean Economy.
Well, we're just calling for reform,
right?
Yeah.
But get rid of the penalties we've placed on ourselves. Extend out some of these deadlines. Give ourselves time to build SMRs and nuclear, smaller nuclear reactors. Stop penalizing us by, having the ratepayers have to pay all these non-compliance penalties. Just backing up a little bit, Tim. One of the things that's frustrating to me is normally when one party has a larger majority, you get more bipartisan votes because you can afford to lose a vote or two.
Right.
So, last year when, it was one vote, it made sense that every Democrat voted one way and every Republican voted another way. Right now, the Democrats are more unified and more party-driven than they've ever been with a wider majority. And any free thinking, it's not happening. The Virginia Public Access Project just did an analysis and said, for as long as they've been tracking partisan voting, this session has been the most partisan they've ever recorded.
Wow.
The Republicans are voting 100% Republican, the Democrats are voting 100% Democrat. On issues like energy, that just doesn't work.
Right.
We just need to be able to come together and say, hey, we're running out of energy. We care about the environment. Let's find an answer together.
Yeah.
The Chap Petersons and the moderate Dems are gone.
They lost elections from their left. Because they weren't. Yeah. It's like the Newt Gingrich, Speaker Gingrich used to say, like, let's find the 70 or 80% that we can get to. We know we're not going to get to 100, but let's at least get to. Okay. Well, shifting gears. So Virginia, the Commonwealth, is a right-to-work state.
Yes.
And it's been fundamental to a very vibrant, dynamic business community here. In the Commonwealth. Now we're seeing stories like Boeing, who has said, hey, we're actually taking off. We're leaving. We're going and taking, I think it was something like 15,000 jobs, and we're sending it back to Missouri in St. Louis. What does that look like? Now, we have not repealed right to work.
No.
And it doesn't look like we're on track to repeal right to work. But we've seen things like collective bargaining, and we've seen things like certain cutouts they want to do on right to work. Can you just talk through, we've partnered on that. You guys bring the intellectual power and us with the grassroots. Like, unpack that for listeners a little bit about just what the impact of that would be and what does right, in fact, look like?
Well, Tim, last night you guys held a great session with ALEC where they did their rich state to poor state report. And if you look at the chart of states that are richer and doing better, they're the states that have right to work laws. They're the states that have gotten rid of silly regulations that drive business away. And if you look at Virginia's ranking, when we first passed right to work, we started skyrocketing in the rankings. But as we've whittled away at it with collective bargaining, public sector collective bargaining. You saw the chart last night. It's pretty ugly. North Carolina's looking great. We're looking terrible.
We went from number three. In their report, I think when they launched it several years ago here in Richmond, and Jonathan Williams, the president of ALEC, explained to us that we now are sitting at 26.
I thought it was 36.
I think it's 26 now, and the report that'll come out on tax day this year puts us down maybe 10 more pegs. Right. But yeah, we went from 3 to 26.
Yeah. You know, the irony, Tim, for me anyway, you know, the progressives in the General Assembly are passing all these collective bargaining and pro-union pieces of legislation. Virginia just doesn't have a lot of union labor.
Right.
And so say like the Davis-Bacon stuff or the set-asides on public projects where you have to hire union labor. They have to hire Maryland companies and DC companies and Pennsylvania companies to qualify because our labor force doesn't have union labor.
Right.
And so we're literally setting up laws that make it impossible for Virginia businesses, non-union businesses, to compete. And it's driving up the prices for the taxpayer because you have to pay that premium for the union labor. So projects that should be $1 million are coming in at $2 million. It's just I don't understand. I don't understand how that contributes to affordability, how that contributes to the advancement of Virginia. And I think the collective bargaining thing they're doing right now is particularly onerous in that right now the law says you have to pass a referendum in order to do collective bargaining.
Right.
And they didn't get as many localities voting in favor.
No.
And so now they're saying, well, you don't need to do that. Now you have to collective bargain. And you have all these local Democrats, that are coming and saying, no, we don't, it's breaking our budget.
We actually put together a coalition of 7 mayors in the Hampton Roads area. So
I saw that,
all 7 mayors of the major cities that make up Hampton Roads came together, Republican, Democrat, and said, we cannot afford this.
Can't afford it.
Fairfax County, one of the largest county in the Commonwealth, 1.1 million people call Fairfax County home, and they're even saying, hey, man, we can't afford this. Counties across the Commonwealth and localities across the Commonwealth are saying, we love the idea. Right. Who's going to pay for it?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's interesting.
But, Tim, the other irony with this is that they've also passed a law that says that Virginia teacher pay has to be above average within 2 years, national average. Mm-hmm. And so they're having collective bargaining, and then they have this rule that basically forces whatever deal is made has to be above a certain level. In Northern Virginia, not a big issue. You're going to be above the average. You're getting good teacher pay. But man, what about the teachers in Bedford? How is that town going to manage, paying this obligation for teachers? It really is. Again, there are days when I think we've lost our mind.
Yeah. Shout out to Bedford County teachers. We love our Bedford County teachers.
We do love our Bedford teachers.
And we love teachers everywhere.
But the cost of living in Bedford is just different than it is
here.
In course. Southwest Virginia, it's just different. And like the minimum wage, no one's losing their job in Northern Virginia over the increase in the minimum wage.
Right.
Down in Southwest Virginia, you are. And I'm not saying anything negative about Southwest Virginia. I'm not saying they don't deserve a raise, but what I'm saying is their cost of living is way below Northern Virginia. They don't have the housing costs that they have up there. To mandate one rate for an entire state is just it's crazy.
Yeah. So you brought up teachers.
Yeah.
And another big issue that we've worked on together has been on education.
Yes.
And we of course want to continue to push for school choice. We want to expand school choice in the Commonwealth. We don't believe that any child should be restricted on a quality education based on their zip code. And so I'd love to get your perspective on that. What are you guys doing? And then where has this synergy been with groups like ours and yours on the center right on the education issue?
Yeah, you guys have done some great events around Virginia on school choice and getting families and parents to speak out. I think there's one of the problems in Virginia is that people aren't aware of how bad our schools actually are. Mm-hmm. Up in Loudoun County, they still believe they have the best school district in the country. Well, the truth is their test scores don't show them to be the best in the country. In fact, on the NAEP scores, which is the national test, we're about 30% below where we should be.
Wow.
But the parents get reported the SOL tests, standard of learning test.
Right.
And there's Governor Youngkin used to call it an honesty gap. There's a gap between where our students really are and what we're telling parents they are. And while most states have recovered from the pandemic, Virginia has not. We're behind. Our kids aren't learning. Our models aren't working. We're not innovating. Most other states are trying to do school choice in one manner or another, and we're just stuck. And what we do have, they're trying to get rid of. The scholarship program we have, which is very, very small, it sunsets next year. The word is that Governor Spanberger doesn't want to continue it. The federal tax credit that the Trump administration is putting out, Youngkin got us into it. The word is that Governor Spanberger is looking at whether or not we should participate. The truth
which is insane, right? The idea that there is this scholarship and funding out there to provide Virginia students with a quality education. Governor Youngkin got us into that. Why would we even question taking us out of that?
Well, it's actually amazing because Virginia families will still take advantage of the tax credit on a tax basis. So what they'll do is they'll donate to these things. But because Virginia can't spend the money, they'll have to donate to tax and scholarship organizations in other states. The estimate I saw is that $780 million a year will be given by Virginians to go to scholarships in other states.
$780 million. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that money could stay in the Commonwealth.
It should stay in the Commonwealth.
And help Virginia students.
Absolutely.
Wow. Wow. That is incredible.
Yeah. No, and I'll say this, Tim. The gap between the rich and the poor is hardly worse anywhere than it is in Virginia. If you go to Petersburg, if you go to some of these parts of Richmond, if you go even in the Hampton Roads area, there's a lot of struggling schools, and I just don't understand how we're not doing something about it.
Yeah.
We all want diversity. We all want our young people to excel, but yet we are picking teachers and we're picking systems over kids. And I'm not saying every private school is going to work, but what I'm saying is we know these public schools aren't working in these areas. What are we going to do about it? What chance can you give those parents? And right now, there's no chance except to keep spending more money on what's not working.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Derrick, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We've talked energy, education. Yeah. We've talked right to work, collective bargaining, and thank you for your leadership and what you've done to partner with us as an organization. I think that there's not enough being done on the center right, and so having your partnership has been just incredible and extremely valuable. We've talked a lot about policy. I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Oh, no.
What is your favorite area in the Commonwealth? What's your favorite part of Virginia? Besides where you live. You live in a very beautiful part of Virginia.
I do. I just like the old, the more historic older towns. If you get a chance to get out to Winchester, to Berryville, or you go to the Maple Festival, I always forget the name of that county. There's just so much rich history. And then even the, people were, it's funny, the left was attacking Spanberger for doing her response in Williamsburg.
Go
to Williamsburg. It's an amazing place.
Beautiful.
Go visit it. Go see Americans. We are an amazing state. The number of presidents, our role in history, you trip over history in Virginia.
Right.
Most other states can't say that. So get out. It's the 250th birthday of this great country. Go out and see where it was founded. Virginia.
Yep. Virginia, the oldest democracy in the Western Hemisphere is right here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
I will just say, I have to agree with George Washington. If you go to Great Falls, Virginia, and just look over the falls and the just the beauty, it's hard to match that.
Yeah,
it's hard to match that.
It is. It's very difficult. Nowhere else has it. Right. So, Derrick Max, President and CEO of the Thomas Jefferson Institute. Where can we learn more about you and all the work you're doing?
You can go to www.thomasjeffersoninst.org. That's the best place. And again, Tim, what you guys do, every place I go to speak, I run into AFP, diehards. Do you know, they want to know if I'm working with you guys.
Yeah.
I'm always proud to say we know you, we love you, and we're just excited to turn this around. Virginia's got a bright future ahead if we can just get people to invest.
And that's the closing line. Virginia's got a bright future ahead if we can just get people to invest.
That's right.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Derrick. We really appreciate having you on.